Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome. So she's not surfing to play this class, I think.
I guess so. It's great.
All right, the thought today is on aphorisms on karma. Yeah, they're kind of short, so it's not going to be as much of a talk. What I thought we would do is read like 5 of them, and then discuss them, and then read 5 more. I chose this as a subject for today because they're really kind of practical and concise and shows different aspects of how karma works, or just different ways to look at the law of karma other than what you sow you're going to get, because there's a lot of different nuances. And some people believe that, well, if you're really bad as a person, you're going to come back as a dog, and if you're bad as a dog, you might come back as a cockroach. That's not what's really happened. And HPB says, once you're a human, you don't go backwards. But if you look around the world, there's a lot of different situations that you can be in to learn from karma, or to kind of receive karma from your actions of before. And she makes the point that because someone is in a hard situation, or someone is born into poverty, someone is in a family that's really dysfunctional, is not necessarily, you can't look at it always as, well, they must have been a bad person in future lives, and so this is a punishment for them. It might be, but it also could be that you just need to learn certain characteristics that you're only going to develop as a human by being in that situation. There's people that have what seems to be like a normal life, and then all of a sudden the war breaks out and they get drafted or they go into the army, and from being into a war situation forces you to have you're going to get a whole different slew of experiences that you have to deal with, and you're only going to deal with it in a war situation. Because people say, oh, well, not really, because we're in an office, and people, I was like, no. You're in very dire situations where you're making life and death decisions, and people are actually trying to kill you, and you're probably trying to kill them, and everything that gets involved in that. And if we look around the world, as far as whatever we read about history, and as far as we see in our current everyday lives, there's wars going on everywhere. There's people that are hungry somewhere all the time. There's places where people lose their home all the time. There's people that lose babies or lose family members. So it's a human condition. We can't say, well, that's their problem, because their problem is our problem. It's a human problem. But very few people want to take that perspective. And unless it directly affects them, then it's like, well, I don't want to get involved because that's their karma. It's another way of pushing off responsibility and saying, well, yeah, it's their karma, and I particularly may not be able to do something, but I might be able to do something. And something could be very small. Something could be sending money to an organization that then is helping people. Or it could be not sending money to a particular organization that is not helping people. There's a lot of ways where people can help if you just think about it. So anyway, I'm going to read the first paragraph and the first 5, and then we'll just discuss them, and then we'll go on to the next 5, and each, people can take turns reading. So, Judge states, and this is in one of the volumes of all the articles that Judge wrote, but I think it's good because it gives a very practical, but at the same time, a deep explanation of the workings of karma. The following, among others not yet used, were given to me by teachers, among them being H.P. Blavatsky. Some were written, others were communicated in other ways. To me, they were declared to be from manuscripts not now accessible to the general public. Each one was submitted for my judgment and reason, and just as they, aside from any authority, approved themselves to my reason, after serious consideration of them, so I hope they will gain the approval of those my fellow workers to whom I now publish them. So the first one, there is no karma unless there is a being to make it or feel its effects. 2, karma is the adjustment of effects flowing from causes during which the being upon whom and through whom that adjustment is effected experiences pain or pleasure. 3, karma is an undeviating, unerring tendency in the universe to restore equilibrium, and it operates incessantly. 4, the apparent stoppage of this restoration to equilibrium is due to the necessary adjustments of disturbances at some other spot, place, or focus, which is visible only to the yogi, to the sage, or the perfect seer. There is, therefore, no stoppage, but only a hiding from view. And 5, karma operates on all things and beings, from the minutest conceivable atom up to Brahma, proceeding in the 3 worlds of men, gods, and the elemental beings. No spot in the manifested universe is exempt from its sway.
So, according to number 1, there is no karma unless there is a being. We don't necessarily mean a being as in living, like a living, breathing being, but down to an atom.
Yeah.
Like that all matter is consciousness. So it's also it affects non-living consciousness as well.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting question, because in Theosophy there is no such thing as non-living matter. And if you think about it, you know, because usually we characterize a being usually from the animal. Maybe an ant or an insect, it might be a type of being. We don't always consider plants a being. We definitely don't consider gold or carbon a being. But if you think that before there's a planet where there are living animals, humans, plants, somehow that has to come together. And somehow all the elements that make up a planet have to be formed. And they're formed under karma. And
Not the watching the back thing.
no, it's not. And it's not like a big extraterrestrial God being that is molding it and then forming it and then setting it in space, which is it sounds kind of, I'm not being derogatory, but what it's saying is the space of the universe is intelligent. There's intelligence in Akasha. And that whole blanket that seems empty is full. And that material that makes it up has intelligence in it. So the same thing, on a more advanced level, you could say, well, why do plants only come up at a certain time? You can say, well, it's because of the seasons. But yeah, but what about the seasons make some plants come up yearly? Once the plant's there, then it dies, then it comes back up. There's other plants that the seeds only sprout after a forest fire. And they could live there for
being consumed by something.
Yeah. And they could be there dormant in the ground, on the ground for 100 years, 100 plus years. A forest fire goes through, and then rains happen, and a little time passes, and then the trees start growing back. Or why do katydids come out in a very particular cycle? They don't come out of the ground every year. So there's intelligence there, and science has studied a lot of different parts of our ecosystem, and the more they study, the more they find out that everything has an intelligence, and a lot of that is interconnected. So the simple thing of removing dams on a river affects the whole ecosystem, because now the fish can swim further up, now they have more fish, now more fish swim down, now you have more animals that eat the fish, and then it just goes out from there, and it doesn't explode. It works, and then it maintains a certain harmonious system. But when we interfere and we put stuff in there, it takes a while for it to start to deteriorate.
Well, on number one, for what it was being said, there is no karma unless there is a link to make it and feel its effects. So you did mention that, from Brahma to the smallest town, that karma is being made and it's felt. Because speaking of the plants, we know that the plants, how can we think that the plant feels or it has consciousness? Well, we learned that behind every form, there is an intelligent being. So we can say that behind every plant, even a
Grass.
a blade of grass. I was saying, even in a blade of grass, which there's no blade of grass, equal to. They're all different. So there's something behind that, whether it be the mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, that there's this intelligent being behind it that in a way is participating with the form to make this law and feel its effects. And for example, on number 4, what he said, the apparent stoppage of this restoration or equilibrium, it says apparent, right? The term apparent is like, we don't really see it, is due to the necessary adjustment of disturbance at some other spot, place, or focus, which is not visible to us, in a few words, only to the sage. So there is therefore no stoppage, but only a hiding from view from us. But if we think about the sevenfold constitution in ourselves, then you might think that there's your neighbor and he seems not to suffer of anything, but his karmic effects might be cited or might be in a different way. You were speaking about the homeless people. Maybe some of them have we all do have a different type of karma. For some, it might be physical. Something happens to you, something in your organs or your body physically, and some other people may have it mentally or psychically. Emotionally, that was the other one. Emotionally, and so those are sort of like the apparent stoppage that become invisible to ourselves, and yet they're happening, and we're just not aware of it. But it's with everything that Colin mentioned, and if we go behind the form, then there's those beings animating the form and working, which in Theosophy are called hierarchies. But again, the idea of that intelligent being defined behind every form, then therefore is making and feeling its effects. So once we have manifestation, we can see there's karma for anything within the manifestation, whether it be anything really. Anything we can think of.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this line of where is it? 5 karma operates from the smallest thing up to Brahma. I wonder, if you read that karma is simply expression or cause and effect. Like, I wonder what karma look. I don't think we can comprehend it with a human brain or with me talking about it in words, but I wonder what karma sort of represents on the highest level or a much higher level.
Like if you're able to like see, like they're saying.
Like, I feel like right here we're on Earth, so karma to us tends to be very dual.
Yeah.
It's like action, reaction. But from a non-dual perspective, they'd be one and the same.
Well, going along with that, that's one point of view. The karma is simply action. So action is everywhere, right? You know, up to Brahma, to the smallest atom on the table, anywhere. So that's one aspect. The other one is the idea of the what is the term? Oh, it just my mind went blank. This is on the secret doctrine.
Karmic agent?
The law of retribution.
Retribution.
Yeah, retribution, which means that whatever you think, you feel, or you do, then it has that aspect of cause and effect. Whatever you think is going to have an effect. And so the idea of retribution means that obviously not only emotion, because motion is karma, everything is emotion, that means karma, cause and effect. But the idea of retribution is that we're getting exactly what we deserve, whether we call it good or not good. Yeah, but it's exactly, we are reaping what we sow, whether in this life or in past lives. So as I think he said, the word is also the unerring law of retribution.
Oh, yeah, the unerring.
Well, like one of the things that I think about too is like how it affects, even like planets. So you think of how do solar systems become formed and why? Why are certain planets formed the way they are, and why do they, all go have like a certain aspects to them? Our Earth has certain atmosphere, certain plant life. Like, why does that happen? And why are there other planets, rotating, revolving around a specific sun? There are many different solar systems we know. So why those planets form and, rotate and revolve around each other in certain systems. So I think, there's causes. When you're thinking of maybe like a higher cause, you think of, to me, that's what I think of, like why are there's these, why certain planets.
Well, I think also part of Chris's question, he pointed out like another aspect of karma is that we on this plane are creating disturbances. It says karma is the unerring law to establish equilibrium. Equilibrium to what? Equilibrium to whatever the original plan was for karma to manifest in this. There's a karmic manifestation in this solar system for a particular cause. It was set up in previous system. So a very high being is more of an agent of karma. It's like someone that is an architect and they developed a plan, or they see what the plan is. And so then they have to put the plan into a building. So they choose, on a very crude level, they're choosing to act to hire a contractor who chooses to hire a subcontractor. But the first person is aware of the plan, and all they're doing is carrying out the plan. So they're not really creating karma, is that they are an agent for karma to act through. Now it gets to the builder sees the plan, he realizes how the plan should be built, and he either builds it himself or he hires subcontractors. But his misunderstanding of the original true plan is going to create karma as far as the building goes, because there's going to be discrepancies as to what the original is to be karmically and work out, and what his misinterpretation is going to be. So now you have two aspects of karma. You have the original plan, which is a continuation of an equilibrium, and you have the interference with that equilibrium that's now going to create two paths of karma. And then the subcontractor and so on. So I think there's a difference because it says adepts don't create new karma, but they're still karmic agents.
Right, so it seems like even the fact that there is an interference or a misinterpretation with the contractor is karma to the planner.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though the karmic agent is setting forth an equilibrium within mind, an intention, there's always a bigger equilibrium in mind.
Yeah. And also, like the HPV makes the point that by trying to teach people kind of true aspects of life, if you have a misunderstanding of that, you're creating karma for the misapplication and the people that you teach the doctrine kind of wrong. And so, well, she was trying to explain that the adepts are only able to give out enough information that they think humanity can handle at a particular time, but also that they won't misuse it even though they know how to handle it. So they have it as far as their responsibility. They are karmically tied to the people that they're trying to teach if they have a misunderstanding. Because if they didn't teach them in the first place or try, then they might not have done these errors. But because they did teach them, they misunderstood it. Now that karma is also going to bounce back onto the teacher. In the same sense, like if you're a parent and you have a kid and your kid goes out and he's very young and burns someone's house down, the parent is now responsible for the house that burned down because their kid was playing with matches in the garage, let's say. So it's very tricky. The further we go from the original truth, because, in the secret doctrine, HPV makes the comment that on this plane and on the astral plane is all just relative truth. It's relative to this plane, but it's not truth. What and even scientists know that things that they figure is fact are fact on this plane under most circumstances. But then there's times when even that is not always predictable. And so she said that's the difference between this plane and the astral plane and the Akashic plane. The Akashic plane is the plane of truth as far as this cycle and this system and this manifestation. But anything below that is only relative truth because it's getting part of the truth and it's also blending with part of misunderstanding of us and the beings that are on that plane.
So it's another interesting, I guess this is where evolution comes into the picture. Sort of like, what is equilibrium? Equilibrium is relative. I mean, there's equilibrium. I'm sure if you get higher and higher, there's a higher
Is
equilibrium.
it only relative because we're under it? Like if we were at the top and one of these, you know, adepts or someone that could see it, would it look like that? You know, I assume not, I guess, but I think that we're so subject to so much cause and effect that we can't see really that.
Right. I'm kind of thinking of the as above, so below line,
Mhm.
where it's like from the highest God to like the lowest being here, like what is ethics, you know? And it's like you get rid of time, it's like what is right, what used to be right can be wrong, what used to be wrong can be right. And it seems like equilibrium is set, but it needs to have its own self-correcting system that's impersonal for it to evolve and move forward. Like it seems to be that there's this natural evolution that to me seems to just progress.
Well, in a sense, you could say evolution is the working out of karma.
Yeah.
But even, you know, Judge made a statement about, you know, the Americas, because we I mean, we live here, we kind of take for granted the place, but he said this is where the development of the fifth root race is going to happen. And what does that mean? That means that branches from all the other developments are going to commingle here. And after a lot of time, not a couple hundred years, but a lot of time, it's going to be a different human species. But, and so part of that was, you know, the whole discovery of America, because there was people here for eons before there were any Vikings, even before there were any Spaniards. And he said, yeah, it had to happen. Karmically, it had to happen. But it didn't have to happen the way it has happened. So the people that came here to start a country with a new system, not based on the king and queen, not based on a particular religion. Everybody could practice their religion. A certain form of free thought and free expression with responsibility. That was kind of the idea to start. But what happened? Well, money happened, greed happened, you know, genocide happened. A lot of stuff happened.
Lots of karma got developed.
Yeah, and that's all, you know, and that was all karma that didn't have to happen. Before that, you know, she said, as humanity, as thinking beings, most of their karma was generated in the Atlantean times because they still had they had awareness of spiritual sight. So she said the third eye was open, which means that you could see, know, and remember from the Akashic plane. But we were more spiritual beings than we were thinking animal beings. But how we misused that information created the heaviest karma for humanity going forward.
The higher they are, the greater the fall.
Yeah, and the reason is because if you misuse spiritual info, if you misuse just daily life, there's a certain level of karma. But if you misuse spiritual information, the level of karma is way heavier because it affects not just your own being and not just the beings among you, but it affects karmically humanity and other kingdoms. So the price of spiritual misuse is way heavier. It might take eons of time, it might take a few races.
Mhm.
Not just, you know, not race by way we say race, but like race from cycles and races way the doctrine talks, like a whole mental development is going to be slowed down because of how we misuse our spiritual awareness. You want to read a few more?
Something that came, while Colin was speaking about the Atlanteans, which is us, that the two aspects in this karmic workings, because the lower kingdoms are said to be evolving by natural impulse. So we might say that there's a different karma in all these lower kingdoms. And once from the third race to the fourth, when we became thinking principles, when it is said that the lighting up of manas, then because of this self-devised, self-induced efforts, but not in the right direction, then all of this is happening that Colin was explaining. So the idea that it's almost impossible not to make mistakes. When a child is growing up, you're gonna make mistakes. So when the lighting up of manas happen, the first things, we started making these mistakes. So now we're getting all those effects. And on top of that, if we don't correct them, then we're putting more causes to these effects, which, as it was mentioned, I think in a way is great that we're finding out the workings of karma and then try to be better human beings. Because whether we know it or like it or not, karma is working all over the universe, and we're gonna get the results. So we might as well smile. Be positive.
Yeah. Who wants to read the next 5?
I'll do the next 5. 6, karma is not subject to time, and therefore he who knows what is the ultimate division of time in this universe knows karma. For all other men, karma is in its essential nature unknown and unknowable. 8, but its action may be known by calculation from cause to effect. And this calculation is possible because the effect is wrapped up in and is not succeeding to the cause. Number 9, the karma of this earth is the combination of the acts and thoughts of all beings of every grade which were concerned in the preceding manvantara or evolutionary stream from which ours flows. 10, and as those beings include lords of power and holy men, as well as weak and wicked ones, the period of the earth's duration is greater than that of any entity or race upon it. There's a lot of intuition in some of these, I think. Especially, what is the ultimate division of time?
That one is interesting.
It's almost like Kabbalic.
Yeah.
The suggestion that
The period of the Earth's duration is greater than that of any entity or race upon it. So that means we won't be able to see the end of Earth. Will we?
I mean, probably not us.
Well, that's what it seems to say here, right? That there's no way.
Well, maybe we will be, hopefully we will be advanced enough past where we don't need the earth as a place to develop more. In the same sense that, HPV said before the earth, the previous planet where where humans were developing was the moon. The moon is the mother of the earth. And then the karma from the moon then eventually transferred here. And then once the globe was solidified enough, then we as beings started to descend to it.
I think we should probably include the very next one too, just because it kind of is exactly what just asked. 11, because the karma of this earth and its races began in the past too far back for humans' minds to reach. An inquiry into its beginning is useless and profitless. Wow. That one was more straightforward than the rest.
You know, you think about like, the things we kind of question. And that's number 11 is a good point, because there's a lot of like, well, when did the earth begin? Or, you know, we're interested in the details of some stuff that's not as important as the cause. If we knew the cause, which gets back to the first one, if you knew the ultimate division of time and karma, and like Adepts had made the comment in some of their letters to Sinet that they don't concern themselves with external effects. What they concern themselves with are the causes. If they can find the cause, then they'll know what the effects are going to be. And basically, that's kind of how medicine has to figure out cures for disease. They have to figure out, well, we know this disease is manifesting in a very particular way. So they study that and find the characteristics of the disease. But then they have to figure out, well, this is the characteristics of what's happening, but what's causing these characteristics to manifest? Is it a virus? Is it a bacteria? Is it a gland that is not producing the right hormones? Is it a hereditary? So we got to look at the genes. So they're to the point where they're advancing past just symptoms to try and figure out, well, what is the cause of the symptoms? And so the adepts that's another thing. It's like, if you know the cause of the karma, then the effects are going to be, they're going to be tied up, because the effects are tied in with the cause.
So, let me know if this is with what you're saying at all, and what we're saying. So, if essentially, if you were so blessed, or, you know, an ascended master, so you were able to see and understand, like, the clock of all clocks, like the clock that all other clocks are based on, and, you know, all calendars come from, like, then you would understand that you would understand the actions of karma, because that's essentially what that clock of clocks is.
I think what it's saying as far as time is like, if you're on the plane where time is one.
Oh,
There has to be time on this plane. You know, a lot of philosophers, not just Theosophy, a lot of philosophers say that time is an illusion.
yeah.
But on this plane, it's not an illusion. We all know
The age.
we age. We all know that seasons change. You know, there's just, you don't go to sleep at night and wake up unless you sleep really long and it's night again. So we experience time as a reality on this plane. But if we were on the Akashic plane, it's all one. And that's, even someone that's kind of a good psychic can see just one step beyond this and pick up things in your past and see things that are going to happen in the future. The problem is they can tell you something's going to happen in the future. They can't tell you exactly when.
That's the time, yeah.
Because they don't know the ultimate division of time, and they don't know your interference with it. It's like you make a plan, you're gonna go to university. So you picked out the university you go to, you start taking classes and you follow it. Technically, you should be done in 4 years. You decide to take a sabbatical for one semester, or you decide to change your major, or you get sick. Not everybody finishes in 4 years, or you take extra classes and you finish in 3.5 or 3. So all that can change. Someone that's a pretty good psychic might say, oh yeah, I see you're going to go to the university. And, you know, it's going to be on the East Coast somewhere. You're going to study business, but then you're going to get into theater. You're like, I have no interest in theater. 15 years later, you remember, oh, that person told me that. that's all possible because they can get bits of detail, but they can't tell, they don't know the ultimate division of time, and they don't know all this, the changes that we make and decisions along the way.
And isn't there also like as far as psychic goes, if they're able to see, they're seeing through the lens of their personality as well.
Yes and no, it depends on the development of that psychic. And if they're seeing just on the astral plane, or if they're seeing on the cosmic plane. And see, that's the thing, just like on here, you go to a doctor, there's different abilities of doctors. Some doctors are better, some are very good in a very specific field. Some might not have done that well in school, but as a practicing doctor, they're better than a lot of other people. You know, that's the thing, there's like so many different little aspects that we can change the outcome. But what it's saying is karma is ruling all of it. So even though you screw up in school and your 4-year degree takes 6 years, eventually, whatever you were gonna do after that degree might pan out more even or more in sync.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that first one, this number 6, karma is not subject to time, and therefore he who knows what is the ultimate division of time in this universe and is time. I feel like this is specifically this one to me is jumping out. This is a hint. And to me, it's a hint for consciousness. And the reason I say that is because right now in our time, we've developed video games and we've developed movies. I can put my consciousness into an avatar in a video game and move around in that world. I understand the fabric of the video game, the reality of the world, but my consciousness is completely outside of the video game, so I'm able to move my avatar this way or that way.
Yeah.
And then I know if I go here, I'm gonna go.
You understand the ultimate division of time in that universe.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in a movie, it's like, okay, now I'm gonna choose to relate to this character for 2 hours. So now I'm gonna allow my consciousness to go on sort of like an automatic autopilot drive through the direction of the director. And in those 2 hours, I can go through 10 years, 20 years and jump around. So it's like, I understand that my consciousness is outside of the movie, but I'm choosing to be in the movie, right? So I feel like it's a hint for consciousness. It's pretty good.
Well, it's similar with dreams too.
With dreams, exactly.
You know, dreams where you have a consciousness, but you know, there's all sorts of time happening in a dream, and you could be viewing, you could be all the characters in the dream, but you're also viewing all of what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good analogy of the spectator. Because what is it really in Theosophy, the spectator is that behind all the personality, or well, not behind, not beyond, well, beyond that, but still it uses the personality. The only problem that the personality attaches, or certain part of you is attaching itself to that game, to that field. If certain fields is getting attached, staying there, they don't want to get out. So the idea of the spectator is that it is free from all that, and it's making those decisions. Okay, and you can see everything. So in this case, it will be our higher faculties, like what we call sometimes sama buddhi manas, which is really the we might say the spiritual mind, the spiritual aspect of mind, which it does not get attached to the field of perception. You are able to see all, through the field of perception and make certain decisions, but you're always behind it because you are the spectator in this case that you were mentioning. So I think that's a good analogy that, in that sense, you can also know the karma, because you might see what's gonna happen here if you do this, if you do that. Although that, in this case, in the case of Theosophy, you cannot manipulate that. It's like Tony said, there's a tone, a key tone set up for the whole game, that you cannot change that. You might be able to influence here and there a few things, but still, you're the spectator.
Right, but if you're at that pivotal moment of that decision, it's like you understand the key tone of the whole game.
Right.
For example, like I'm thinking right now, right? Like if I was a college student and I'm deciding to go protest or not, it's like that simple decision is the accumulation of everything going on in humanity. Even though it has not, that student isn't necessarily at war or fighting at war, but it's like that student's consciousness and deciding yes or no is the accumulation of all time.
Your analogy of a video game and the avatar is a good example of the difference between what Roberto pointed out as the watcher, which would be your higher self, and the personality. Basically, each life, your personality is an avatar for this lifetime experience. The problem is when you're in a video game, you're more aware of Chris than you are of the avatar. However that is, you're always more aware of Chris because you're making the decisions that the avatar is going to carry out. As a personality, we're not so aware of our higher self. And if we were, the actions we would be taking would be a lot better, maybe more guided, because at that point, you're not just the person, the actor in the movie, you're the director, and you're aware of what you're trying to get the actor to do. It's your analogy of it's consciousness is a really good explanation of it, because it is. It's just we have really like 3 levels of consciousness, only one that we're aware of, usually. And the second one we get glimpses of is like Kelly mentioned in dreams. And you mentioned is like, even on this experience, you can have the ability to move your consciousness from your personality into this game for a set period of time, or a movie. So if you can do it forward, the trick is doing it inward. And that's what all meditations and stuff are trying to get us, so that when you first play a video game, you're really crappy at it. Anybody is just not that good at it.
Especially the older you get,
Yeah, and just trying to figure out, how to make it do what you want to do, and then, oh yeah, I forgot that they could do that, and oh yeah, it takes a while to learn the rules of the game, And if we could just take a step back to our true originality, our individualized soul, then we gather all that information of that consciousness to apply it to this one little simple game of this personality. But we've lost that because of how many bad decisions we make as personalities going through.
Are you saying that at a certain point we would jump into the video game and know exactly, be aware of ourselves from behind, but we've severed it so that now we've just forgotten how to do that?
Yeah. That's basically experience.
So did us as the Atlanteans, would we also forget, or did we know? Were we incarnating knowing?
We were incarnating knowing and not having much experience here.
I see. So now we have much experience here, but we're forgetting.
Yeah, it's the person that, starts playing video games, and before you know it, they're spending 14 hours a day on a video game. And they're not really eating, and You're not talking to friends,
Right.
and everything is the computer playing people in the other parts of the globe. You're staying up later because now you play with someone in Korea. Now you're staying up later because you get, you get so sucked into this experience that you forget, that you have another total existence going on.
We have other video
You have
games.
other vision.
Yeah.
But, with the higher self, you're on that plane of reality. It's just, we don't get much of a glimpse from it because of karma, what we've done, and also we're very tied to what we do. People have, sometimes you're doing something and you have a prompting that you can say is your conscience. Don't do that. Or you don't want to go there. You shouldn't be doing this.
Holy Ghost.
That's your, that's your true self telling you you're getting, this one, you're really getting in trouble. The other one, you're getting in trouble, it's not that bad, you're not bothered. Oh, hold on. You better watch it here. And you either do or don't. And the more that you can pay attention to that voice, then you start opening up a better awareness to who you really are. And that voice is connected to everybody else's higher consciousness. It's interesting when you look at how technology has changed, because like you say, now we don't just read comic books or have books, we have movies. And a movie is much more emotionally engaging than a comic book or a book generally, because you have all the people that are seemingly alive and doing it. You have all different dialogue, you have different emotions. So you can get really tied up. And the same with a video game. We've made a technology that can really draw your attention and your focus and your consciousness into that world. And now we're trying to, make it the virtual world where you blend that with, daily life, and you wear that all the time. But I think from a consciousness point of view, it's what we really should be trying to direct is how to widen the awareness of our true self, which is connected to everybody else. And then we would be generating less karma because we'd be working with the flow of karma as opposed to with personal desires of how we would like karma to flow. Which is, kind of where we're at now.
Well, the idea of the games, and we can keep making correspondences to this. One may be that we knowingly enter into, Chris, Roberto, enter into the avatar, knowing that by entering the avatar, you were gonna forget who you truly were. That was the lighting up of manas to a point. So then, what happens when you enter the game? Well, like Colin said, first you have to learn all the rules. Now you know all the rules. You know how to play the game. And yet, you don't know the path. It has a lot of dangers. And you lose a lot of lives before you get to the end of that level. You die many times. So by the time you finish the level, it's because you already know exactly every danger in every corner. So you know how to pass that. So we might say that those are like the paramitas. You're learning, you go into the paramitas in each level. So then you get to that level, you get to a new level, and you are going to begin again. It's totally unknown to you. What are the dangers in the next level? Even though you pass to the first one, then the second one is going to be similar to the first one. You already know the rules, but there's a lot of dangers. So little by little, in each level, you become aware in a way of who truly you are. Then the avatar starts remembering, the name is really Greece, higher self. So I'm not the avatar. it was sort of like a ray or something that Chris created to get in the game and really learn everything. And by learning everything, you're helping really nature and other beings to advance too. If you advance, everybody advances to a point because each individuality has to make their own choices. Anyway, I think that the analogy of the games is really good because, by the time you finish one level, you learn many lives.
Yeah.
I'm speaking of the, in my time of the games, with Mario Brothers.
That one's
I used to help my kids and I ended up playing the game. I was the one really into the game. Before you get to the end, you lost a lot. So you have to gain a lot of times in order to. But anyway, that's the learning process of it.
So it seems that every level that you play, even though you start fresh in the next level and you forget the last level, the wisdom learned in that last level stays permanent.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
You just have to access that,
Right.
be able to.
And you're not really learning it, you're remembering, right?
Well,
Because that wisdom
it's both,
is who you are outside of the avatar.
but you need an experience.
So you need the experience.
I think we could stay on that video game.
Yeah.
But I'm now thinking of like specific games and I'm like, whoa, that's even deeper.
That first like decade of video games was a little strange. I studied like the history of it a little bit, but like where video games are now, I don't know where it changed. It took a different direction. But yeah, that first decade, there's some interesting stuff.
Oh, experimentation.
As far as like,
Yeah.
worlds go.
And even what they were gonna be. And even what they were gonna be, if they were gonna be art projects or, virtual reality.
James, you want to read the next 5? Beginning with 12.
Number 12. Karmic causes already set in motion must be allowed to sweep on until exhausted, but this permits no man to refuse to help his fellows in every sentient being. Number 13. The effects may be counteracted or mitigated by the thoughts and acts of oneself or another, and then the resulting effects represent the combination and interaction of the whole number of causes involved in producing the effects. Number 14, in the life of worlds, races, nations, and individuals, karma cannot act unless there is an appropriate instrument provided for its action. Number 15, and until such appropriate instrument is found, that karma related to it remains unexpended. And number 16, while a man is experiencing karma in the instrument provided, his other unexpended karma is not exhausted through other beings or means, but is held reserved for future operation. And lapse of time during which no operation of that karma is felt causes no deterioration in its force or change in its nature.
Oh. That one sounds tricky.
Yeah. Did I read too many or?
No,
That's good. The first thing that strikes me there on 13 is something that comes up again in Theosophy is that the thoughts and the acts. Like we love to cynically say like that, oh, thoughts and prayers means nothing and it's insulting. There's matter to thought. We talk about the quantum theory stuff all the time that shows definitely that just thinking something or being something changes other stuff.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, in Theosophy, we teach that as this, human being, we have an effect on all the little lives that make up our body.
Yeah,
So
too, yes.
how are we doing that? By our thoughts and, our actions too.
Well, yeah, so everything begins with thoughts. So
Ideation.
what is the quality of my thoughts? Maybe I'm not acting, but that doesn't mean that you have certain quality of your thinking. So you might not be doing anything physically, but you're affecting the world of thought. We are all connected, thank you, with our thoughts. And we don't know, or maybe I don't know, but the idea of thinking, many times it happens that, somebody says something and that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Or somebody asked something, that's what I was thinking. So there's that connection, and therefore there's certain level of activity on the thought, on the mind thought.
Yes. I mean, there's plenty of respectable psychologists and scientists that are really big on the collective unconscious because it's the only thing that explains. So there's not a lot of hard proof on it yet, but it explains a lot of things that the other things can't explain. So, I mean, just symbols alone and themes and the flood and stuff like that. It definitely seems like there is a thread, at least that little golden thread, but probably much more here.
I sort of think of a dumb terminal and linking up to the cloud. So that's sort of how we are. I'm not gonna say we're dumb, but I mean, this is really just a tuner. It's really all up there.
But you have like eternal golden wisdom right there, yeah.
Yeah, and like it seems like what's the phrase where nature or mankind mimics nature? So we created a system called the cloud, which is sort of an unconscious expression of what's really actually out there. So we sort of did it in a material way. But it seems like the reality is our being really accesses the information up there. So when you might say something that was in my mind, it was already up here.
Right.
That's sort of how I see it.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. The cloud, everybody uses the computer. Everything that you have in your computer, everything that I write or whatever I put there is in the cloud. So yeah, it's a good analogy there.
And hackers can hack
Exactly.
your individual space there and then pull
And affect your karma.
Yeah.
Affect the whole karma.
Yeah, and that's in the world of thought. That becomes true. A lot of people can have certain amount of development or powers that they can influence people to think certain things.
Yes.
Think about how many actual people function as Trojans.
Yeah.
In other people's lives or
Yes.
business. It's great.
Yes.
We are influenced every day
Yes.
through everything, radio, TV, what we see, how we live. We're being influenced by that too.
Yes.
So that's the idea of, and that's why it says here, number 13, like you said, the effects may be counteracted or mitigated by the thoughts and acts of oneself or another. And then the resulting effects represent the combination and interaction of the whole number of causes involved in producing the effects.
Yes. And I think there are techniques that somebody can train themselves to sort of protect their cloud space, to prevent others from accessing it.
I think hopefully that's what we're doing when we do this. Hopefully, developing a bit of that.
Absolutely.
Well, like Colin mentioned, I think last week or one of the weeks, like there are talismans that you can help protect, but the ultimate talisman is a heart full of like love and compassion.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the ultimate protection.
Good one.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, the number 15 always like that makes me just think of, family karma too, like why you're born into certain families, why, there's a connection with certain people and it's the atmosphere for this karma to be worked out. You know, and where you're born, what time you're born.
And it's not like the karma is waiting on that, it's also creating the conditions for that instrument to be found. So it's also that non-dual, like, yeah.
And it goes with 16, because even though that appropriate instrument, like Kelly said, it might correspond to whole life, being born in an environment, but it might be an aspect of my life right now. Because we might say that in this life, there's several instruments for this being, but not all of them are active or present, because on number 16, it says, while a man is experiencing karma, in the instrument provided, his other unexpended karma is not exhausted through other means or means, but is held reserved for future operation, and so on and so forth. So the idea that this field of operation is providing certain aspects of karma from past lives or from this life that are going to be working through the instruments at this time. And it is said that, you know, the student of Theosophy, depending upon his sincerity, he might be sort of like accelerating his karma too. That's another word for that, but not accelerating.
Quickening or opening up a channel.
Quickening your karma, because by studying it, you know, even though we understand a little bit, but you're kind of opening doors for that karma to manifest. So you might be creating these instruments during one life, whether it be mental, you know, by your thinking, your thoughts, or emotionally, or psychically, in many different aspects. We are, you know, experiencing that. But again, those that don't find the right instrument will have to wait.
Well, it's interesting that they use the term instrument, because most people think of that, well, that's my body. But it's also your attitude. When your attitude changes, it's gonna open up a different avenue for karma, good or bad. And it's just like, you know, if you're a single person and then you're not, and you have a kid, the mere fact by having a kid opens up karma that you would not be exposed to without having the kid. Because it changes the relationship and it changes your thinking. Or if all that stuff, someone that's a professional sports player, they have a certain amount of karma that's gonna work out by them being in that profession. But then if they're not in that profession anymore and they go into the business world or they don't work at all, it changes what can happen and what you can learn, because it's changing the circle of your friends, the circle of your acquaintances, the people you work with. All those different aspects that we consider aspects of personality are also like an avenue for an instrument. And like as Roberto pointed out, a change of mind or a different attitude as to how you look at the world, then it's going to change that.
I want to know, or a question I have is like, for past lives, it seems that certain beings travel with us. We travel in a group.
Right. She talks about that, yeah, Blavatsky talks about that a lot, yeah.
Like
How you tend to reincarnate around.
Right.
Yeah.
like this room, for example, this room, I have like a karmic connection with this room where like I feel like I've seen it for like 10,000 years. And
I've been here from like 1929, and so. But like, I guess might have been waiting for it to be built.
Yeah, seeing tree, yeah. That's pretty cool.
I remember like first walking in here and being like, oh, yeah.
Feels familiar.
But like, okay, like families or even like lovers, relationships. So what I want to know is like, if you specifically with relation, and I know they don't like to talk about this in any sort of spiritual or philosophy, but like with certain relationships, you live a sort of level that you had to experience, and it made you pass on to the next level. And now that person's here again. It seems that way sometimes with certain relationships, but it's not quite working. Maybe this is going way out hand, but I feel like when you're done with a level, when are you ever done with a level? I guess it's your own journey, but it seems like sometimes it's not useful anymore.
Well, that could definitely be possible. I mean,
Like a religion, for example, right? Like say I was incarnated and like Christianity worked for me and it worked for me, and then suddenly it doesn't work,
In a different environment, yeah,
right?
time, environment.
that gets back to what Roberto's talking in. You can have a change of mind or a different realization.
Yeah.
Well, you have to, you know, even if you just take one lifetime, there's friends that were really close to friends when you were a kid that you don't even keep in contact with. And there's other friends that you might have stayed in contact with all along. So certain relationships, certain interactions bring in a certain level of karma, and then maybe that karma is expended. And it's gone. It's nothing. We tend to take things really personal because we're personal beings. But you could have familiarity with someone and think, oh wow, we were probably lovers in a previous life. You might have been business partners. It could have been
Brothers.
brother. That's the other thing. It's not like you're always going to come back a woman or a man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you might have been a man for 3 lifetimes and like, you know what? It's time for you to be a woman and see what that's like. And so, yeah, there's just so many different intricate things that you can't experience as a one-sex being one time around. It just doesn't logically make much sense for the universe to have all these different galaxies and systems, stars, planets, and then you're around for, 5 to 105 years, give or take, whatever your luck is. I mean, why? There's trees that live for 2,000. So why develop the intelligence of a particular being and give them all that intelligence in a form that only lasts for a few decades?
That's a good question.
There's a shark the news has been talking about a ton lately that I can't remember where it is, but
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, Brian, guys.
it was,
From another friend.
yeah,
Hi.
I remember.
Sure.
But it's something, it was born in like the 1630s. This thing has just been wandering around these oceans since like the Renaissance. And it's not even a tree. This thing is like closer to the consciousness as we know it. It's just wild to think like, what goes through this thing's head? How does it perceive? Like, it's almost like what a vampire might be like.
Yeah.
Everything you know passes away and.
Yeah.
And what does it experience? Because you think of all the different, even just on a basic level of food, all the different food that shark used to be able to eat.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm
Complete species extinct, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how many things that it was food for are no longer there?
Mm. Oh.
How many predators that are gone and it's still around? Should we read a few more?
Yeah.
These are called aphorisms on karma. And so they're different statements that William Q. Judge learned from his teachers and other sources that he said he was disclosing of ways to look at how karma manifests and how the laws work out, and for us to get a better understanding of them. So we've been reading 5 at a time and then discussing. So Kelly, we're now on
17.
on 17.
Okay, the appropriateness of an instrument for the operation of karma consists in the exact connection and relation of that karma with the body, mind, intellectual, and psychical nature acquired for use by the ego in any life. Number 18, every instrument used by any ego in any life is appropriate to the karma operating through it. 19, changes may occur in the instrument during one life so as to make it appropriate for a new class of karma. And this may take place in two ways. A, through the intensity of thought and the power of a vow, and B, through natural alterations due to complete exhaustion of old causes. 20, as body and mind and soul have each a power of independent action, any one of these may exhaust, independently of the others, some karmic causes more remote from or nearer to the time of their inception than those operating through other channels. 21, karma is both merciful and just. Mercy and justice are only opposite poles of a single whole, and mercy without justice is not possible in the operations of karma. That which man calls mercy and justice is defective, errant, and impure.
Seemed like it was gonna be pretty straightforward, like the first five we read.
Gets more
The
complicated.
number 19 addresses Chris's question, where it says, although through natural alterations due to complete exhaustion of causes, so you might, have some connection to a person over many lifetimes. That the karmic cause for that connection is gone, and both continue with other connections. Whether they be like a romantic connection or whether it be just an interaction, a family member, someone that you work with, someone that was your teacher, someone that was your kid. There's all these different relationships or interactions that we have with people. Sometimes you have someone that you're just really close to in a particular semester in school because of what you guys are studying together, and then you don't. Sometimes that one connection that you have with someone that you met at a particular event, you have the rest of your life. It's just, life is very peculiar that way. But some things have very, just superficial connection, and some things, you meet someone and over a short period of time or over a gradual period of time, the connection is really deep. Whether even if it's not relationship wise, like a partner, it could just be a really close friend that you're closer to that person than you are to any family member.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a wide spectrum of experience that we gather and that people influence us. One teacher in high school could have the biggest influence on your whole post-high school experience because of what you learned in that class, or just how they taught you to learn. There's so much of going and learning in life, whether you go to, extra classes or whether you just observe in life and read and get interested about something, is learning how to learn. If you're interested in something, how do you find out about it? You can take a class, you can read books about it, you can talk to people that do that, you can look up stuff on the internet, you can go to meet up and network with people. If you're interested in film, you can do classes or meet with people that are doing film, or you work as an intern in film. There's just so many ways to learn, but we first have to have some basics as to, well, how do you learn? There's so many ways, but once you can start applying that, then you develop, life experience, and it gets easier and easier to really pursue things that your mind is questioning. It's all like food for your mind and experience for a personality to develop their character. Or can be.
Right, so I'm wondering if like, say, like we think about it a little more metaphysically as far as like ethics and lessons. Like say, I was supposed to meet this one person to learn trust, right? If, for example, I go ahead and I learn trust through this person, is everyone else supposed to learn the same trust? Because it seems like trust underneath in the metaphysical plane, it has the same ingredient or mechanism, and it's just out here in the material world, it becomes different things, right? So for example, like say I needed to learn trust. A bunch of other people have to learn trust. I go ahead and like, I experienced trust. It affected me so much in my life that I go ahead and I write like a script about it and I make this movie. And now I can share this movie with a bunch of other people. And they can learn trust by going through that journey in the movie. Like, is it the same? What am I asking?
Well, it could be. It could be because then those people might not really be concerned with learning trust or had any kind of interactions that they had to learn trust. Or from watching your movie made them think about it and put it into, they might have been a very untrustworthy person and never really aware of it. You know, they just did what they wanted and figured, well, you know, it's other person's problem. And, you know, it could be relationships, you're not trustworthy in a relationship. You could be with your friends, oh, you know, I'm gonna meet you somewhere. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Oh, loan me some money and then I'll pay you back on Thursday. And then, you know, 2 years later, they forgot about it. So there's all different avenues or ways on this plane that trust can manifest itself. But as a principle, as an ethic, trust is, you know what trust is. And the more you experiences where you either you weren't trusted and it had a, because it doesn't always have to be that you did something that you broke someone's trust. Someone could be very somewhat damaged because of trust that they gave that was always broken or broken consistently. And now they don't trust anybody. It takes a long time for them to trust you. So you might, you know, there's just so many different avenues where as a quality of a person, it can manifest in different ways.
I think that's what 17, you know, said, the appropriateness of the instrument for the operation of karma consists in the exact connection and relationship of karma with the body, the mind, the intellectual, psychic nature. Used by Henry Ego. So like, you know, Roberto would always was talking about, we have, you know, the septenary constitution of our existence, and so it can, karma can be acting on all these levels.
But when we get down to it, they're just different out here. Yeah, the more subtle we go, the more they are the same. And I'm wondering if if it's connected on that subtle level. Right? So for example, if this pen is blue, and I'm seeing it as blue, and everyone's seeing it as blue, everyone's seeing it in their own shade of blue, but underneath the construct of blueness is within all our own systems.
Yeah. But the other aspect of your question karmically, you decide to write a script about trust. So you take experiences and you extrapolate that out and write a screenplay and make a movie to show your understanding and element of how trust is or should be manifest. And you could do it in one very specific way, or you could do it in multiple ways. Your intent to do that would have a certain amount of karmic backing, we might say, a universal karmic backing to try and teach that to humanity, whoever it reaches. But at the same time, the people that misunderstand your movie, you know, it's going to have some negative effects. That you can't help. So
That's why
you
they
know,
call karma the doctrine of responsibility.
Yeah, I feel like making another taxi driver, you have to be kind of careful.
yeah, or you know, this idea like what's really popular, what movie can you get financed really easily? Horror movies.
Mhm.
How to make a slasher movie. So, you know, there's a lot of people that go and see a slasher movie just because they're excited. They're not gonna, you know, they'd be totally terrified walking to the car after the movie. Just because the movie upset them, but they're not gonna go out and slash people.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. But there probably will be people that watch that really are thinking about it and they're gonna, you know, maybe manifest that. That's the thing. It's like it's a lot of times, especially, you know, certain artistic expression, you can make a war movie to try to get a point about how bad war is. But then people take away that, oh, that guy was great. Look at how many people he killed.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they say it's impossible to make an anti-war movie. That just by making a movie about war, there's gonna be some kind of a glorification that someone sees in that, not, you know, probably a lot.
So it's a very delicate thing, but you don't want to, if you're trying to stop people from having war, then you have to make a war movie. But how do you make it so that at least the majority of people take away that, you know, maybe we should be done with it.
Mhm.
But it's very hard because now you're working with someone else's history, someone else's life experience, and how they're going to interpret your artistic expression. And so, yeah, I mean, if you watched a few of the, especially the early, if you watched a few of the Star Wars movies, they're very metaphysical movies. Most people got caught up in the coolness of the space alien characters
The lightsaber.
and the lightsaber fighting. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's very obvious there's a good guy and a bad guy, but it's way more deep than a good guy and a bad guy. But, you know, maybe when you watch it for a few times, you start seeing these other elements. But they're there right from the beginning. They're there in the characters' names. They're there by how they teach. You know, there's just so many metaphysical, spiritual teachings in that, but not everybody gets it. They just get it as like a future war movie. Like all the other
Sometimes people too, though, like learn better when they're not learning at all. It's just kind of seeping in under the guise of, yay, these sword fights. You know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's how a lot of people do learn.
Yeah.
Number 21. It's interesting to read that which we call mercy and justice is defective, errant, and impure. So it seems to be that here it's talking about different mercy and a different justice. If we read it all, it says karma is both merciful and just. So let's say we see the world, what's happening in the whole world, you know, wars, you know, everything is not very nice, and yet karma is merciful. And mercy and justice are only opposites poles of a single pole. Okay? And mercy without justice is not possible in the operation of karma. And then that which men or us call mercy and justice is defective, inerrant, and impure. So what he's saying here is that there's a mercy and a justice which is pure, but it's not the one I see in the world. So there's a different kind of justice and mercy, because if karma is merciful, then I would be able to understand why it's happening, what is happening in the whole world. Otherwise, it will be different. But anyway, the idea of learning and studying all these aspects of karma is helping us to understand that there's a whole different level of understanding of how karma works. And going back to Kelly's on 17, because it's 17 and 18 in mentioning the instruments. And as we spoke earlier, that the instrument could be the whole body for one life, or it could be your thinking, your ideas, your changing of plans, different instrument, your changing of life, style, a different instrument. So reading 17, it says the appropriateness of an instrument for the operation of karma consists in the exact connection and relation of karma with three things: the body, mind, the intellectual and physical nature, acquired or used by the ego in any life. And here, for those, because here ego means the reincarnating principle in ourselves. So the reincarnating principle, that's when you were speaking about the games, the observer, priest, the watcher is outside the game. So he can see everything what's happening in the game. But the avatar that you created is involved in the games. So here we can see that the ego would be the watcher behind it, is perceiving everything. But the idea of body and mind is those aspects that get involved in each one of us, because he says the body. In Theosophy, the body has its own realm, or we might say level of functioning, and it has its own consciousness. For example, when we go to sleep, we're dreaming, so we're not in the body, we can be in any place, speaking to many different people in any language, and seeing everything, hearing everything, yet the body is left alone. And at the same time, the body has its own consciousness, because you hear a gunshot and the body wakes up. So that means that the body is aware of its surroundings, and therefore then the mind, the mind in Theosophy, the principle that is not in the brain. The brain is an instrument for the mind. Then in the psychic nature, the idea again that we were speaking about the different types of karma, that sometimes we may not see certain effects on the physical plane or the body, or sometimes we do, but it's happening on the in other planes of nature. For example, what was this guy that passed away? That he couldn't speak. He was in a wheelchair.
Hawkins, the scientist.
We can say, look at his body. So karma was really active in his body, but his mind was really brilliant. So, it's a way to see that karma operates in different aspects of the human or the ego, because all of these mentioned are really instruments for the ego. The body, the thinking, and the psychic, and all of that, it's just different aspects of instruments for the ego.
The emotions are psychic.
Emotions,
Your friend,
Again, it looks like we're gonna have to continue this.
does your friend in Hawaii have any
Let's
comments or
see.
questions?
Hey, if Charity, if you're still on there, do you have anything to add or close? Sure.
Yes, still here. No, I think I just kind of wanted to observe and see how the meetings are ran for now.
Yeah, well, it was a good thing. It was a super easy subject this week for beginners.
So you want to continue this next week?
Yeah, I think we'll continue this one next week, guys.
We're talking about 21.
21.
21.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of Cinco de Mayo.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
You.
We don't celebrate our karma.